Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now she here, and after 100 hours or so, I think it's fair to say that I've gotten a good grasp of the latest major update for Gray Zone Warfare, which is their patch 0.2 Night Ops update that I would say everybody was been waiting for it, but it is definitely something that people have been anticipating waiting for quite some time, myself included. And as you can tell, it is 21:46 at the time of this recording in game, and well, we have our gamma cranked up, so that's why it doesn't look as dark as it should be. But I want to note some things that they did bring some improvements with the update, namely for the fact that I don't think I've had a crash for a hot minute. I think I've had maybe like a couple or a few disconnects, but like with the amount of hours in between everything, and we are running NVIDIA Reflex a first, because with DLSS it tends to bog things down on my graphical end of the spectrum. But like it's nuts to even think that how crazy this thing looks, because well, on my system it's wow, that's pretty low on the gamma here, but for the most part, it's hard to notice the graphical updates, if anything, performance-wise. One thing that I didn't notice is now we actually have a ping meter in relevance to like our own connection to the server, and right now I believe they're still kind of working things out, because occasionally I will see my ping shoot up from past 80 to about 120 to depending on the server or my own game performance. I've seen it shoot up to 600, so we can kind of say, and I would say safely assume, as I'm going through this, what they're going to be trying to do, what they're trying to do in terms of their outlook with the game and how it relates to people interacting with the servers, interacting with the island of Lamong, and even with myself having to force myself to play it at 30 frames because of the herky-jerkiness, although I think for intensive purposes here I can't get up to 30 or 60, excuse me. And there's a lot more micro stutters when I do that, but because I cap it at 30, it just feels like it's a lot more tangible if I tone it down, and I can, I think by limiting it by 30, which is, I would say, by a remote start playable for me, I'm able to do what I am right now, and this has been a solo run, honestly, because the first time going through the initial early access launch, I did have the luxury of running it with other people, and for the most part, it's just mostly been me playing this. With the back end of additions that the update has brought, I would say from hands-on experience with both the AKM and the AK-74 or the 545 AKs, that they actually feel nice. They actually feel viable. You don't feel like they're super inaccurate, although I'm not sure if they're going to stick to that 3 MOA statistic that either platform uses, because let's be fair. I know a lot of us are coming over from Tarkov and other games that are in similar nature, but like 3 is kind of still workable, but at the distances that we're engaging a lot of these guys out there, it's rather questionable. But at the same time, I don't think they're permanently going to keep it that way, which is totally fine. This is, after all, in early access. It is pre-alpha, and sometimes when you're having a lot of fun with this, you tend to forget that this game is not even in full alpha yet. There's still a lot of mechanical things, graphical things, server things, and even economy things that I'll get into in a second, that they're still kind of hashing out, that essentially they haven't really finalized yet. Like, they have an idea, and it's a lot of testing for the most part. So speaking of economy, they've added a lot of different things as teased in the trailers beforehand, leading up to where we're at now, and and including the hot fixes in between the major update We actually have cases now. We've always had cases like in the form of the key pocket things, these little key holders, but actually got a little igloo now. Yes, it's an igloo. And we also have high-tiered loot, which also incentivizes us, the players, to check the bodies and, you know, gives us a means of not just disassembling gear and trying to make money off of it, because honestly that got old pretty quickly during the initial access. So I'm still holding on to this little thing, which I can't tell if this is modeled after a Nikon. I'm pretty sure this is modeled after a Canon, but yeah, this is a DSLR that's worth to the vendors for 640, and that's across the board. So kind of I wouldn't say it's a gripe, but it is something that I noticed too. Is it's like, okay, you have gear that is sellable across certain vendors, whether they do regular gear or they do weapons. The problem is that they're for the same value as well, which I don't know if they're going to be introducing any changes with that, but it is something that I do notice, and it's kind of, I would say it's kind of silly. Like if I go to Artisan, it's $1 for the 10 rounds that I found laying on the ground. Same with Turncoat. And I think that's kind of the issue with dealing with USD versus multiple currencies. Not saying that we need it, but it definitely, I would say it definitely is noticeable and probably is a pain to kind of balance out economy-wise. So I'm just hoping that they can kind of work through those details, because there's a lot of different things that I do notice when going through all the different vendors. This is noticeable even hitting Gunny and Handshake at level 2 through regular progression, is that it is very similar to the first early access run during that wipe, and we get like the nicer belt right off the bat, which is a really nice thing. That used to be so high end that we were stuck with that 2-slot belt forever. So it's good to see a lot more usable gear, a lot more containers like this being kind of viable, because at tier 1, this is literally all we get as a player, which is usable, but it kind of also almost segues into another issue, is like armor. Armor is still something I don't think they have quite down yet, because everything that they have here either has front only or front and back facings, and maybe side ones, which I'm understanding that they're probably embracing the PMC type of gear, because they're not going to be wanting to wear anything that's really relatively heavy. But at the same time, like if I go to Turncoat, probably what 2 or 3, which is where it's behind, they got the 6B23, which is, you know, level class 3 steel, which is literally the same classification as the rigs that I have here now, but it's only got a front facing, which that sounds all nice and dandy, but I'm looking forward to them expanding on that, because that's it is still a persistent thing right now. But jumping into the title thing, which I know I'm kind of going back and forth with this, and I kind of got tangent off a little bit. Yeah, it's not really super dark. I mean, granted, you could turn down the gamma, but I tried turning it down just now, and then it just does not look relatively feasible if I do that, because I already have brightness turned down too. Oh no. So I could turn down my brightness, and that's actually relatively dark, but you know, for the way that this game is set up right now, I don't think they have that squared away. But night vision's okay. I haven't been using it. If anything, the biggest part of the update that I've been really enjoying is, as you can see, the laser, where I'm using a cheap NC Star laser, because well, if I want to run anything super crazy laser wise, it's god awful expensive. Just to kind of give you some kind of context here, just the laser itself right now, where it's 432 bucks. I don't even know if this is compatible. Here, let's try that really quick. Oh yeah, it is. What's that? Look at that. So I mean, I'm glad that there's a lot more stuff to choose from, for sure. But the price ranges for a lot of these items, man, it does make you kind of have to go out of your way to essentially save up a good amount of stuff. Oh no, I can't even use it. Wow. Wow, son. Yeah, so yeah, just for a rifle one right now, to what I have access to, that's for lack of a better term, that's pretty steep. And even if I went to our Warsaw Pact based stuff here, I don't have anything there yet. Turncoat doesn't have anything either in that capacity, so yeah, pretty much gotta suck it up and drop that 400 large there just to get a laser. And then on top of that, to say the least, the new durability mechanic that they have, I know they're kind of experimenting with it. It's kind of a mixed bag for me right now, because for one, I know that they're going to be introducing crafting, so probably interrelated to that, we're going to have weapon maintenance or some means of repairing, either whether it's ourselves or through a vendor, or maybe both. But I do feel like them introducing this right now is a significant problem, because, well, if you die, your gear essentially incurs a 10% penalty. So what could have been pristine and takes forever to wear out is immediately hit with a 10% like piece of damage, and that affects your weapon stats, your recoil, your handling. I don't know if it affects the optics right off the bat, but for lack of a better term, it sucks. Not a fun time. So like anytime I see it drop down to a certain amount, like I think the lowest I was running was 60% stuff. I was like, nope, I'm tossing this. It's just out of habit. I think partly that is to blame because of how much I have time-wise with the Escape from Tarkov as well. And yeah, it's just I understand where they're going with it, and I'm not like, I wouldn't say I'm not floored. It's not going to be the end of the world, but at the same time, like, if somebody asks me about what do I think about it, I think it kind of sucks in that regard. Like, it's eventually going to be something that we're going to have to deal with once the game's closer to completion, even if we're looking at it. Yeah, the penalty is pretty harsh. 10% is pretty harsh when you die. And because the thing is that this is how I look at it from a standpoint, is that when you die in this game, right, your gear is already getting messed up because you just got mag dumped by the AI. That AI is going to be, the constant back and forth deal. But the problem is, if you die again trying to get to your body, you lose your gear entirely. So not only do you have the added difficulty of trying to get your stuff back, you got to get your stuff back that's already kind of messed up from you dying to begin with. So it's kind of like it's a weird, like, it feels like it's just like kicking the balls in the wrong direction. Like, yeah, it should be challenging. It should be in a way where you should value survival and other factors as well, but the execution is not in the right place. So yeah, because like the thing that chat is mentioning while we're recording this live is a durability penalty is feels like it's too penalizing and removes the incentive to retrieve gear, which is, I would say, pretty much the nail on the head there, because it's just like, should I retrieve my body and retrieve all the stuff that I picked up, or should I just outfit with a kit because there's no insurance factor, like the big granddaddy of all extraction shooters, Escape from Tarkov, which a lot of people have to contrast with, because in the field right now, you can probably contrast it with Arena Breakout Infinite, which is also an extraction shooter, but guess where it gets all its little things in terms of mechanics from Escape from Tarkov. So using it as a means of contrasting, as players are going through Le Mans, doing tasks, fighting enemies, whether it's the locals or the corrupt Le Mans army, you're going to be dying quite a bit. I've already died quite a bit to weird hits and, bullet tumbles and everything. But like every time I've gone out of my way to go pick up stuff. And sometimes it's like in those instances where it's just like, do I really want to get my stuff? It's just an M4. I can replace it, or I can just, rekit and be smart and do some other stuff and try to retrieve some of the stuff that's still good from there and try to sell it off. And that's, granted, I think that's another game mechanic that's interesting because your body's persistent, but at the same time, it's kind of a pain in the ass, especially um, with Madfinger still trying to work out the means of dealing with the AI, dealing with AI behavior, with how they're behaving with the day and night cycle, things like that. So it's in a weird spot. I wouldn't say it's like quite there yet, but it's not like it's, you know, they need to change it now. Like for me, I would say I'm kind of knowing what I invested into because, you know, with a lot of early access games, you know, namely Squad, for example. Squad was developed in 2015, and, you know, there was a different vision back then to where it is now. And I feel like Gray Zone's in kind of the same boat because they're still working out stuff. It's still in pre-alpha. And then, on top of that, a lot of people, like myself included, can't help but compare this to Escape from Tarkov. Not in the sense of the nature of the being, but because it is an extraction shooter and there's a lot of shared properties in that matter as well. So there's just a lot of different systems that obviously they have to work out, and that's going to take some time. And, you know, honestly, I'm just happy that they're making as much effort as they can to be just completely transparent and straightforward, that like, hey, this type of stuff is something that we probably already discussed about. You guys are very clear, appreciate the feedback, that sort of thing. And it's just gonna have to take time because the you know, with the limited staff that they have, it's not like they have the AAA backing. But at the same time, like, I'm kind of glad that they don't, because it's just like, well, they're gonna have a different work instead of different work ethic. And I think, to be fair with what we got so far, as bare bones as this might feel like in some cases, it's definitely a good thing, and I'm happy for it. I'm very curious to see, like, say, give it 6 months from now, I'm hoping to have this running at 60 frames at the very least, instead of me having to run at 30, and I don't know, just have a lot more fun with this, and maybe we'll have a lot more dynamic things going on with this game as well. It's really hard to say. Like, they do have a roadmap and everything else to go along with it, but, you know, only time will tell in that regard. So that's my take. I would say, based on everything that I discussed so far, and with a lot of tangenting factors and me backing and forth, and there's just a lot to take in because I put my time in, both on stream and off stream, playing this, and I feel like in this case, it's still something that I can't quite recommend. If anything, to be more honest with that, I would say if you're still interested in Gray Zone Warfare, wait for a sale. Maybe they'll have something during around Christmas time, I hope, because I know the autumn sale that they had on Steam was probably the most recent sale that I felt like that probably would have been a good time to jump on if you had some interest in it. And for the price that they were discounting it, it wasn't bad. But at the same time, like, I'm on the minimum side of things for their requirements, and I wouldn't say I'm running this most optimally. Like, I would say my standard is I can deal with crappy graphics, I just want 60 frames, and I'm kind of in a spot where I don't get to choose that necessarily. So hopefully, like I said, hopefully with the passing of time, you know, Madfingers gets this nailed down to the point where we can start doing a lot more video stuff with that. But, you know, I was gonna try to get in some B-roll there, but I feel like if I don't do this now, it's not gonna be as fresh in my mind as I would like it to be. So if you guys enjoyed and agree with stuff, don't hesitate to give me that thumbs up and let me know what you guys think about it. It is a pre-alpha game. You know, there's definitely some passes that we can't have on here, but at the same time, you can't deny that this game has a lot going for it too, and only time will tell how far they can go. So till next time, guys, I will check you out and talk to you guys on the next video. Take care.